I'm super excited to discuss it with you. So
it's been really fun. You sort of unlocking this data and just getting different perspectives on it.
it is, and I love that the CEO data that I was hoping for is popping up. So it supports everything that I've been saying, which is always good. I mean, I get these intuitions or these feelings, and I sometimes think I'm a little ahead, and then I get the data to back it up, and I go, whew, okay, that feels good.
Love it. I love it. We've got a few people just trickling in, so we'll give it a little bit more time here. We'll kick off in a second.
Yeah, this has been great watching the weekly briefings. I'm really glad that you started this program. I just think it's tremendous.
It's been a lot of fun. It's different. It's something new. So it's something new for me personally. So it's been a good experience.
Yeah, and you've got to meet a lot of different people probably that maybe otherwise would not have met. So, I mean, like the two of us, I'm excited that we actually finally got to, get on and chat. So
It's one of the best side benefits of this is just, meeting great people. Well, how about this? Should we kick off?
Yeah, let's kick it off.
All right. Happy Thursday. Welcome to the weekly briefing. I'm Jim Benton, CEO at Chorus. This is our weekly session to look at sales data across the market, to unlock these insights and to help executives to make better decisions. And today I'm with Alice Heiman. Alice, so great to have you with us.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be here and love what we're going to talk about. So everybody hang on to your seats because we're going to give you some great data to go by.
I love it. Well, Alice, we're going to dig into customer success, retention, and the role of the CEO. I wanted just to maybe get a quick sense of, you and your background, and specifically looking at Q2. And how was Q2 for you? What are some of the perspectives you picked up from your customers?
So it's just all over the board. For some people, Q2 has been awful. So I feel, in my heart, And then for some people, it's been just kind of the same. And for some, of course, as you know, it's been just simply amazing. But I think one of the really big learnings is that the salespeople do have to go about things a little differently. And they're getting more used to that. And they're now focused on knowing that they have to up their game and that they have to rally their team, the senior executives, the subject matter experts. They're not just going into these sales alone. They realize that they've got to bring a team in to do a great job. So I think that now moving into Q3, we're set up a little bit better to handle what the buyers need.
Well, let's jump into the data in terms of upping the game. And I also think the perspective on the segments are seeing very different type of reaction to the market right now. So we'll look at some high-level data on overall sales trends. Then we'll jump in deep into customer success and some of the stats that we're seeing in that segment. And then we'll end on really looking at the role of leadership and CEOs and what the data is telling us from that standpoint. So as we look at the momentum of sales, this is the most updated data. So for the week, we're up 3% week over week on overall meeting volume recorded. It was down 8% quarter Q2 over Q1, but in general, our teams out there continue to meet, and July is showing some good uplift. What do you make of this data?
Well, this is good news for any sales rep that's out there complaining that nobody wants to talk to them. It's not true. People are talking. You can get on the phone with the people that you need to talk to, and here's the proof. So if you are not having this many meetings, then maybe there's something you can do to switch your mindset or get some help or do something, because people are meeting. The buyers want to talk to you. They're depending on you. So this is good news. This trend is awesome.
Absolutely. And I wanted to specifically look at this trend on customer success and retention. So we looked at that exact same data set and said, well, what is the meeting volume of specifically customer success reps? And what we saw was a 1% week over week change. But if you look at this data and you go back to April 6th, even go back to March 16th on this slide, we all went to work from home, and CSMs have played a very significant role, especially starting mid-April, of increased activity from what they were doing in Q1 and continuing to see that, as we kick off, Q3.
Yeah, again, more good news, because our customer success people need to be involved with our customers. It's great. I see teams bringing customer success in earlier in the process. And I love that because it's much more of a team approach. I love seeing the customer success people digging in after the sale and meeting lots of people. And this is a great trend, and we need to keep it up. Customer success needs to be deeply involved with our customers.
Alice, how did it change? Q2 is a quarter that we will all remember, and hopefully Q3 will be better. But what changed in CSMs, and how did they have to quickly adapt to the conditions they were in terms of really helping their customer bases?
Well, it's interesting because depending on, it's so all over the board, but some of these companies, had more business than they knew what to do with and needed more help from customer success probably than they ever have before. So customer success needed to get on it, and start helping them. And with some of my clients, they were completely shut down. So, customer success was sent home, and in some cases, really couldn't even do their job. So with it being all over the board, I think companies who buy from you need the support and reached out for it. And hopefully you were there to give it to them. But I think it's going to be more and more the case that the companies who are doing well and thriving in this environment are going to depend on your customer success people. So we want to have them be ready. We want to have them not just reacting, but being proactive as well, and reaching out and talking about the good things that are happening and what else they can be doing.
I was impressed when we looked at the CSM activity, so just the volume of meetings. And this is a new stat that we haven't shared before. We see on average that in June, CSMs were having 25 meetings per month, which is similar to what we saw in January. But as you look at February and March, it's significantly up from sort of that steady state that we were seeing. How do you make 25 meetings per month? Where do you think that fits in from what you see with the clients you work with?
Well, I do hope, and I see with my clients, I do hope that it does mean what I just mentioned, which is that the CSMs are getting to be more proactive. They're seeing the need to be more involved, and they're coming up with good reasons to call the customer and have a conversation with them. This is helping our entire organization. So in cases where customer success might have waited to answer the phone, when we now put them in a position where they are armed with great information and can call out to the customer with that information and be more proactive, they should be having more conversations. And it changes the relationship. So now I just don't call you when I need help. I call you for insights and ideas, or I know that you're going to reach out to me to talk about what's coming next. And I think right now, coming out of Q2 and looking at the end of the year, we all need to be more focused on the future and the great things that are coming. And I think that customer success can be a great help to every company right now. So I know I see that in my customers, regardless of what industry they're in. And I think it's a great trend.
It's interesting. We looked at the customer success versus AEs. The data also showed that on average, both roles meet at about similar volumes. We did see, again, April, CS, that was a massive month for CSs to really pick up in a very challenging period and came through. And now we're seeing kind of an uplift on both sides as we kick off Q3. But to your point I wanted to get your thoughts on this aspect. When you think about the CS team, we're seeing that on average, CSMs meet with 4.6 stakeholders in an account. We're also seeing that the CSMs will meet with the champion 3 times a quarter and other stakeholders twice a quarter. This is phenomenal. Is this consistent with what you're seeing?
It is indeed consistent, and it is again an excellent trend. So we hear a lot in the B2B complex sales world, land and expand. Well, exactly what does that mean anyway, right? But what it means to me and to the clients that I work with who are selling software and technology, and they're smaller companies, mid-market selling to humongous companies. What it says to me is that we don't want to just be positioned at these lower levels where we sold into. The expand part is, hey, we're here, we're doing a great job, and we're going to show you what a great job we're doing and continue to help you, not just, okay, at renewal time, give you a call. So customer success needs to know more people. I mean, the sale might have been closed by the salesperson with, 3, 4 people, 5 people, whatever it is, but then customer success can dig in and continue meeting with those people and expand to meet other people and move up the ladder, bring other senior executives in, excuse me, as needed to expand even further. So I love seeing this, because the trend used to be the customer success really had like one liaison, maybe two, and they were not meeting the other important people in the account. So I love that they're meeting more people, staying in touch with them, and meeting more often.
When I look at it, we spend so much time talking about sales as an industry and messaging and outreach. Mm-hmm. Right now, shoring up your customer base, really taking care of customers. Important. And what we're finding in this data is that if CSMs are connected to champions 3 times a quarter, what's the message? What are we arming with them? What's the experience they're creating? How close are we to making sure that we're really focused on enabling those experiences? And what we're finding is very dynamic messages right now, given the market changes.
Well, it's really important because no one can afford to lose customers right now. So customer success is more crucial than ever. We want to keep the customers that we have, keep them supremely happy, so that renewal isn't even a question. Of course, they're going to continue, right? Or they're going to buy more, whatever the case may be, depending on what you're selling. But not only that, what I'm seeing with customer success in the clients that I'm working with is that they're able to get introductions to people who they have never been introduced to before, and they can flip it back to sales, and they're getting referred into other parts of the company, into other companies, and this is helping the sales effort for new logos, which everybody right now is clamoring for, right? Mm-hmm. They want brand new business. Well, that's terrific. If customer success can take care of our customers, the salespeople can be out doing that. But the cold outreach isn't working as well. So when we get these introductions from the customers who know us and love us, it's an amazing thing, and it's just what we want. So the more customer success can dig in and build these deep relationships, the more opportunities they're going to have to get introductions and help the sales team.
I love it, and I think what we're also seeing in that as we analyze the calls and doing some deep AI on this, we've been looking at specifically decision risk and budget risk. And decision risk is really analyzing calls and looking at prioritization, approvals. Budget risk is more on the true the budget aspect of it. The decision risk has gone down, so we're seeing less risk of decisions being not prioritized, but we are seeing an increase in budget risk of 15%. It's up 15% over the last quarter. What's your take on this?
Well, first of all, I think in all the sectors that I work in, what I see is the main decision is no decision. And that's killing us, right? Because it's not like they're going with our competitors. They're just not doing anything. Why? Because of the budget, right? So they have to really make a decision here. So when they are making a decision to purchase, they're being very careful with their money. Yeah. So there's this feeling that, we better not spend too much because we just really aren't sure what's ahead. So even the companies who are doing well are using their budgets very sparingly. So we have to help them really see the value in making a decision to act versus making no decision, because they are thinking, wow, if we spend this money and then it doesn't work, they're just so much more risk averse on spending larger budget dollars. So we as sellers, our whole teams have to go in there and really help them understand the decision they're making, ensure that it truly is the best decision, right? And then help them make that decision and move forward.
I think it makes sense. Why don't we look at, I'm curious to get your take on the role of leadership in these calls. And I know that's been an area that you've been writing about actively right now. One of the areas that caught our attention is we look at the role of leadership on the buying side. So is the buying side bringing in directors and executives? It's up 108% since January. Last week was a record week on this. But one thing that caught our attention is on the selling side. So our sellers bringing in their leadership. Although it's up 65% since January, notice kind of the downward trend since June. And
that's interesting. It's interesting.
I'm curious if we're seeing a fatigue on that side, or what are you seeing out there?
Well, first of all, the buyers are bringing in higher level people. That is a fact. And sellers need to learn how to navigate that. Where a committee used to be able to do their job and make a decision, now we have higher level, senior level people getting involved, because again, it's just back to that other slide, that budget risk, right? Yeah. So I think it was Topo at their summit not that long ago that talked about the new kid in town, the deputy, they're calling it. So someone at the company is in charge of all the change management and things that are going on due to COVID and the economy and everything else, right? So those people are kind of poking their head in and going, you're going to spend money on what? And even though it was already budgeted, they're still rethinking it. Okay, well, I know that was budgeted, but I'll have a look at it to make sure we really still need it. So we have to help our sellers understand what these higher level people are thinking on the buying side and why they're getting involved, so that we can help map this, decision-making process, including all of those people, and help them again make that decision. This is why it's so important on our side, the seller side, to bring our senior people in as well, so we can match like levels and they can talk to each other at that higher level. However, that fatigue you're seeing, think about smaller companies who don't have, as many salespeople. You can bring your senior executives in on more of the deals, but when you have 50 or 100 salespeople, there's not that many senior executives to go around. They're not going to be able to get on all those calls. So I'm sure they are getting fatigued.
Yeah.
But we might need to revitalize that a little bit, because in this environment right now, there are absolutely times when the senior executives must be involved. It's not their job to swoop in and close the deal. Your salespeople know how to close the deals. It's your job to get in there and bring insights and help secure the positioning and make the senior people on the buyer side feel confident.
I think that's right. I think that the pointing out the imbalance where we are seeing that the buying side is continuing to show up. We need to make sure that on the sales side, we find ways to be in more places, or just to be on the right calls. But to your point on the deputy, this is what we're seeing from CFOs. We're seeing a 92% increase in CFOs joining calls since January. And even in the last few weeks, it's been on the upward trend of this. This is the new, I think you mentioned before, the new sheriff in town. How does
this does not surprise me at all. And so CEOs, listen to me. Teach your sales teams how to think like a CFO. Use your own CFO to help them understand, what do CFOs do all day? What do they think about? Why do they care? Why are they on this call? What's going on in their minds? Because if we don't understand that, we're not going to be able to move these deals along. And in some cases, sometimes it will take a senior person who speaks CFO language very specifically to talk to them and help them feel confident in making this decision. So take heed. This is important stuff.
I like the role play with your own CFO. You mentioned before matching role to role. Do you ever find that your own CFO gets pulled into these? And how can we leverage a CFO if we should?
Yeah, CFOs on the seller side are probably not as used to getting involved, but I think they could be very helpful right now. So for the teams that I coach, I have them do a pre-planning meeting and bring their CFO in, talk to them about what their role is, give them some ideas of what they want to talk about and the questions that they should ask. And sometimes it even helps if CFO to CFO, they have their own conversation without the rest of the team. So your CFOs can be greatly helpful to you right now for the larger deals. And on both sides of it, either just to learn from them what a CFO is thinking. It'd be kind of fun to bring in a couple of your customer CFOs and do a panel and let your salespeople ask them questions and such. That would be super. But also, using them as needed to get on a call and show the customer that you care enough to bring your CEO along, or the CFO or CEO, any higher level executives, because they need that understanding and they need that confidence.
It's great feedback. A lot would come out of that, and the data has shown that this trend is not going away.
No, it is not.
You need to be changing. One extra stat we pulled specifically for you today, Alice, is we wanted to specifically break out the CEOs. And are the CEOs getting more involved in calls? And what the data shows here, if you look at January versus June, we're up 29%, but significant trends. You can see they got really pulled in March. And as a collective group, June was even higher.
Yeah, again, this does not surprise me. And I'm actually really happy to see it. I do believe that now is the time for CEOs to be intimately involved in sales. But once again, I don't expect the CEOs to be closing the deals. Your salespeople should know how to do that. I hope they do. But the CEOs can play an important role again in that confidence factor, especially where there's great risk and lots of dollars at stake, right? And it shows that your company cares enough to bring a senior leader in when they bring their senior people in. So you're matching those like levels. The CEO can also bring in insights the way nobody else can, because they have that vision for the future for your company and where things are going to go and how you can really partner with your customers versus just selling them something. So if you do this strategically, you can really make a huge impact and your sales will continue to increase. But you've got to use your CEOs well. Otherwise, you will fatigue them, as we were talking about before. They can't just be dragged in on every call, but you certainly need to do it strategically.
Alice, I've enjoyed reading some of your blogs where you're very focused on planning, from daily to weekly to monthly, and it matches many of the ways I think about things. What's your advice to CEOs that are listening right now when they think about their weekly plan? Where should the customer be this week?
So in your weekly plan, as a CEO, you've got, I know, so many things to think about, but please carve out some time to think about your top customers and what you can be doing and how you can be touching them, how you can help support your team to keep your customers supremely happy. That has to be part of your weekly routine, thinking about your customers, reaching out to them as appropriate. Again, strategically planning around how the CEO should be involved with each customer. And then on the other side of that, thinking about your prospects, and you want your salespeople to go out and land all these new customers, and that's terrific. I want them to do that too, but they need your help. They need your help in a couple of ways. They need you to be thinking strategically about pricing, about payment plans, about new products. So if you're doing that kind of strategic thinking to help sales be able to bring what's needed to the market, it's really helpful. And then you need to also ask them, what do you need? Where can I be helpful? And make sure they understand that you are willing to do what it takes to help them close these deals, but it has to be strategic. It can't just be willy-nilly, oh, get the CEO on this call. No. They have to think strategically, and that can only be done if they're spending time planning. So you model the way you're planning how to use your time to help sales with customers and prospects. And you need to model that for your salespeople to do better planning right now, because it's a little bit harder and they've got to do good planning to get those deals closed.
Yeah, I think it's also the highlight of the week for any CEO is that time spent with a customer, being able to test some of the new strategies, some of the new product, and just getting that input. One of the last,
hearing that feedback. I mean, it's awesome.
Absolute highlights of the week, and it's when everything kind of connects, or the aha moments come from that you're so close, and then the customer unlocks that one extra piece. The last data point, looking at specifically CEOs and founders, goes to your point on planning. But what we find is that CEOs, 145% difference between spending time on 100K plus deals versus, sub 5. That's an obvious comment, but this is an interesting look at the data of where they're spending their time across deal segments. What's, I would say, more unique is on the right side. When you look at CEOs and founders by size of company, so an SMB CEO versus a mid-market versus an enterprise CEO, there's an 89% difference between an SMB CEO's engagement versus an enterprise CEO. And that's telling us who's really showing up on these calls right now.
Yeah, well, it's not surprising, because if you take a small or medium-sized company selling to a behemoth, right, their CEO isn't going to meet with your CEO, but their general manager or their CFO or CMO or some higher level person that's involved in that specific area that's making that purchase is. And, that's like levels. At a small company, it would be the CEO that needs to be at that level. But also when you think about it, there's just not enough senior people to go around. In a large company that has 100 salespeople, right? Yep. The CEO couldn't possibly be as involved. Now, I will say this. I've talked to some of my friends who work at some of the largest companies in the world right now. And some of them are really struggling. Some of them are doing well. But I believe at those large companies, if the CEO did change maybe their perspective a little bit and get more involved with those largest customers, I think things would be a little bit better right now. But maybe at these, Fortune 10, Fortune 500 companies, the CEOs aren't used to doing that anymore. So it's kind of interesting. So I don't know, maybe it would be a good thing. But certainly at SMB and mid-sized companies, the CEOs need to be involved, and I'm glad they are. I'm glad that the data shows that they're doing it.
Yeah, I think they're getting involved. They're listening to recordings, they're joining the calls, but they have to stay close right now. Well, my final question to Alice is just, and thanks so much for joining us today. This is a blast. What's your perspective on Q3? What's your outlook? How do you see Q3 playing out?
So the optimist in me wants to just say, oh my gosh, things are going to be so much better, right? I'm looking to the future. But I think, when I settle in and have a quiet moment and really think about it, what I want all of the company leaders out there to know, and the salespeople, is it's still gonna be more work. You're still gonna feel, the pressure. But I do see things changing, and mostly changing for the better. And people are wanting to have more conversations now, where they might have had their head down before, and just second quarter, the lockdown, and then all the CEOs and senior leaders were focused on getting payroll protection plans and idle loans and adjusting budgets and furloughing, laying people off. Okay, that's settled down a little bit now, right? There's still some companies struggling, and unfortunately they're going to go out of business. But many companies are figuring it out, and they're working together, and it's just so great to see that. So I feel like it's still going to be tough. So don't just expect that you can just exhale, okay, that's over. It's not. But I do see things, turning a little bit and changing, and I see companies settling in, and people are talking. People want to buy. They're looking to the future to figure out what are the best purchases that are going to really shore up and secure their future as well.
That's consistent with what I'm seeing. I'm seeing things more rhythm right now. We had our all hands yesterday. I was kidding with the team that I thought last week was the best week I've just ever seen in this company. And I think it's just the consistency of there's a lot of really interesting signal out there, and people are really looking for new ways to solve problems. And you're right, we're not dealing with the PPE and the things that we were dealing with. And yet it is a very challenging world we're in. So maybe bright spots. I don't know, but we got to have fun doing what we all do.
Absolutely. I think that's one thing as a team, and you as the leader of your team, is making sure everybody is still having fun, even though it's tough. Yeah. Like, hey, we're all in this together. Do things that make it a little bit more fun, lighten it up a little bit, put some flowers in your office, eat some chocolate, do some things that are fun and help each other. I think we just can do better. It's great to see companies doing that. I want everybody to stop doing more, because you are burning people out if you keep doing that, right? On both sides of it. And think about ways we can do it better. Because now is the time. If ever, we can do it better.
Alice, I love it. Thank you so much for joining us on the weekly briefing. All of this content is available for people listening to go to Chorus.ai. You can go into our resources section and watch all the different briefings. But Alice, wishing you a great rest of the week, and thanks so much for sharing your insights.
Thanks, Jim. It's been great.